it would have looked like it had been through a fire. Holy crap, 1200 amp service for a house? That is beyond, but that is exactly what's going on here. Walk this way, I'm gonna show you what's taking place. You see, first the utility company, it took them over 1 year, but they bored from the main street about half a mile that direction, all the way under here, along the road, and set a separate, distinct, and unique transformer for this customer. See, we've got 400 amps to the house. It's a big house that's suitable. But the ticket is we've got a $1 million pool house sitting in the back, and that's got 600 amps plus a detached garage with power too. So this is the single phase transformer that delivers all 1200 amps to campus. Right here we've got a CT meter cabinet. There is no main power through this cabinet. It's strictly CT metered in the transformer. Out of the transformer, we have 4-aught conductors to the house, and we have 350 KC mil conductors starting at 44 inches below grade. We've got layers of dirt between each set of conductors to avoid conductor bundling derates. And follow me, I'll show you the project for today. Pool house! This thing's beautiful. It's got pretty much everything. Pretty much everything. 8-person in-floor hot tub. It's got a lap pool. Everything's heated, conditioned, climatized, steam powered. It's got bathrooms, offices, very comfortable. Overall square footage is about 3,600. So right here on the back of the house, our 3 sets of conductors come up right here. You'll notice that these are 4 conductor cables. That was actually just in case the disconnects went up by the transformer, but we're able to put them back here on the house. So we're only needing 2 hots and a neutral per set. So 3 200 amp disconnects. The supply house is out of single phase disconnects. So we're actually putting 3-phase disconnects in place, and we'll have a voided set of terminals that's unutilized. The electrical panels are right inside this wall. We've got 3 Square D home line, 200 amp panels. So we'll come right up in the bottom of the disconnect, land on the line side, penetrate to feed the panels, and that's all we have to do. And it's only 2:25 in the afternoon. And we've got guests coming for dinner. Let's go, let's rock. All right, so we are inside the mechanical room at the back of the pool house. I'm drilling from the 200 amp panels through to the exterior to identify the locations of my disconnect switches, and let's go. Finding center of hole. I'm gonna oversize my hole so I don't have to be ultra precise. Oh, I don't think it penetrated the sheathing. There it is. Can you see the first hole?
I don't know if I see the first. I see the one just
Boom. Short of the Tyvek. All right. Make it happen, Captain. My responsibility on this job is high level management. I submitted the original bid, which at this point with change orders, I think is right around $40,000 for the total project. The main power to the structures is my job. So that's what I'm taking ownership of. I've done no interior wiring on this pool house, as you could tell by how nice those panels looked. And I'm noticing that I've got a couple issues already. One, I failed to pick up the 2.5-inch Schedule 80 PVC conduit that's going to come from grade into the bottom of my disconnects. So I'm shy on that. 2, the team did a favor, which was nice, and they already punched out 2.5-inch nominal trade size holes, which are actually 3-inch holes in the backs of each panel. And I brought 2-inch because you see, this is 200 amps. So by code, I only need 4-aught aluminum conductors. So I was gonna put them in 2-inch, and I was gonna use this PVC all thread to penetrate the wall and get that depth. At this point, I either need reducing washers or 2.5-inch fittings to make that happen. So we're gonna get it done step by step. Steve, it's Joel with Jefferson Electric. Long time no talk. How are you? Hey, I am working on, believe it or not, a 1200 amp residential service, and I need a few parts. I'm a little shy. Thank you. I would love a total of 3 sets of 2.5 inch to 2 inch reducing washers. So that would be 6 washers total, 2.5 to 2 inch. I'm going to assume that all of this is in stock at 52nd Street. Only need 2 more items. Beautiful. Secondly, I need 20 feet of 2.5 inch PVC Schedule 80. All right, good. And I will take 10 feet of 1/2 inch PVC Schedule 80. Appreciate it. Well, if all goes well, that's it. All right, many thanks.
You want 6 sets or 6 or 3?
3 sets, 6 total. Ooh, let me just check my piece of equipment. You know what? Go ahead and bump it up. I'll take 2 more sets just in case these knockouts don't come out clean. Thank you, sir. Have a good one. Bye. I transferred the holes from the inside out, and now I'm going to drill from the outside in because I'm going to keep the mess, all the wood chips, outside. And that just gives me a little bit more latitude because it's the panel is a restriction inside. Out here, I've just nothing in the way. So here goes. Typically it's a little bit cleaner for the siding to go on first and then the electrical equipment. In this case, the order is being reversed because they're desperate to get power in here and start climatizing it. So wood and finishes can acclimate, drywall mud can dry, things like that. So we're progressing the power, and the contractor has said he'll trim around them. That'll hold the disconnect on the wall. So you know you can get books like Brain Quest, Brain Benders, things like that, where there are all kinds of unique problems, page after page. Usually they're consumable. They're matching shapes, they're observing patterns, they're all these for all different grades and age levels. Those books are phenomenal, I think, just for making really agile-minded people, but also electricians, because a lot of what we do is very physical, logical, spatial, and if you can develop that skill set through hands-on, but also through creative puzzles and games, that's a benefit.
So he is considering putting a tonal gym. Do you know what those are? It's like some apparatus. It's got a big screen. I think you can like live view with a trainer or something. Arms fold out. You can do all kinds of rows, curls, blah blah blah.
Really?
Yeah, it's like $4,000, something, I think. He's thinking about putting one on the other side of the wall here. Thermostat wires for the floor heat, nothing to do with you. This light fixture would have to go away and either become a junction box inside this cabinet. I think there's a cabinet here. Or maybe the refrigerator right against the thing, I'm not sure. So either junction box that or pull a new leg between where it's coming and going from, which I haven't had a chance to look.
So is the light eliminated or relocated?
I think it's gonna have to get eliminated. I don't think there's room for it because
Pass through, okay.
we've got the thermostat that we can place down here for the floor heat, but then their control panel was to be right here also.
Okay. A switch box is okay? Or is it it's recessed into the wall or it's just surface?
No, it's surface mounted.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, so I think that box is no problem. Easy peasy. And then I need a receptacle for it too. I need to be able to power it up.
What if we do this? I assume it's fairly low draw. It's just basically a TV and everything else is strictly mechanical.
Assuming, yeah.
Okay. Seems reasonable.
Turn that into a receptacle.
Yeah, just pull a 14.3 in lieu of this 14.2. And now we've got an outlet here, and we swap the box.
Cool. Can we put it down like here if we do it? Okay.
Yep.
Awesome.
Okay.
That works.
Coolio, Julio. Snap a picture, I'll mark it up later. What's up, Cliff?
Oh, here he is. What's up, Cliff? How are you?
When does that floor become walkable?
I'm gonna try and get it covered up tomorrow.
Oh, okay, nice.
That's my intention.
Do you mind taking the van and doing a West 52nd Street Curb Risk Well Call pickup?
Okay. Keys are in it.
Keys are in the cup holder. Order is ready and waiting. Good to go. Yeah.
For here.
Yep, 3/6 of PVC, 2.5 inch, half inch, and then reducing washers. And it all comes back here. We're behind the pool house.
But this is the only access.
Correct. And you do not have to back up down the driveway again. It's very tight. Fold your mirrors in, and then when you come back, just park on the street.
Okay.
So what do you do if you get halfway into the earth and your ground rod quits driving? You cut it off, new ground rod, start over again. Because if it won't go down, it definitely isn't pulling up with a pair of pliers or otherwise. And maybe get a bigger drill. These are standard type fuses. There's nothing special or expensive about them. They're 200 amp rated, 250 volt rated. You want to make sure of one thing, that the fuse has a fault capacity that is equal to or greater than the available fault capacity. That's AIC or KAIC. That number can be derived from the engineer for the area, from the utility company. That's the only place you can get that number, because it's a calculation of their transformer capacity and how much surge current could flow in the event of a fault from their distribution system to this equipment. If the surge potential is greater than the capacity of any element of the equipment, then what's going to happen is if there is catastrophic failure, I mean like big direct 200 amp ground fault, then things are going to blow and melt and they're going to fail catastrophically. So like the person standing in front of the cabinet's going to get torched instead of it's just going to blow the fuse and kill power. There's a big difference there. Melt the skin off your face or non-event, call an electrician. I'm gonna bring my utility conduit, line side conduit, in this bottom left knockout because that's the only place I've got clearance to bring my conductors in the line side. Top is always line side's always top. And I don't wanna have to bend one of those 350 KC mil tight like that. I wanna give myself as much room as possible, a generous wire length, so I'm using center and right. All right, from an aesthetic standpoint, as I'm busting out these knockouts, one thing that I wanted to achieve is an eyeball straight line across the top of the disconnects so that once the lateral siding is up, you don't expose faults in the installation. You know, if there's an 1.5 inch difference, not like it super matters back here, but if there's an 1.5 inch difference from one to the other and that lap siding goes up with a nice clean horizontal line, you'll see it. The other thing I wanted was equidistant spacing. Now this is not code, this is nothing like that. Equidistant spacing between cabinets. I realized I actually could have moved both of these over about 12 inches and maybe optimized my knockouts and minimized my digging just a little bit. So I'm feeling like I missed on that one. They're all uniform, they're all true and plumb, but I could have saved probably, maybe 10 minutes there. So what happens if Tim, wailing away down here, nicks the installation of this URD cable? This is direct burial cable. You know, I tell you what happens, a couple different things, and I could go on and on and on about all this stuff. We use a heat shrink kit to repair that individual conductor. We use a heat shrink and we attempt to restore the jacket to its original condition. So that's an easy fix. Let's say we nick the conductor and it's damaged and we no longer have full ampacity. Then what we do is we use a splice kit. We fully cut and finish severing the conductor. We strip back, we put a splice kit in place, and then after that's been tightened and torqued down, then we slide heat shrink over it and repair it. And again, that's going to be a real heavy grade, direct burial rated splice kit, heat shrink kit. So that's what we do. The other thing that we did on this project is we laid a direct burial caution buried electric line tape at least 12 inches above the highest conductor. And if you recall, we laid the first set of conductors at 44 inches. Then we backfilled 4 inches of dirt evenly across the trench on that those conductors. Then we set the second set of conductors, another 4 inches, third set of conductors, that's 8 inches. So we ended up right about 36 inches, which is utility required depth for service lateral conductors. And then we backfilled another 12 inches, and then we put this metallic ribbon or caution tape, but it's not that yellow stuff crime scene tape. That will deteriorate underground and will not be there when you need it. So this is a metallic tape. This is cautioned buried electric line along the entire length of the tape, and that's to protect this. If someone's excavating, presumably they'll pull that up out of the ground first, and if they've got their wits about them in any way, shape, or form, they'll stop. They'll call 811, they'll get a relocate, do it right. Okay, so this project was massive, epic utility coordination effort that took well over 12 months. First iteration was when the customer tore out the tree line to make room for this project. They exposed some overhead utility poles that were unsightly. So they offered to pay to bury the service and all the utilities, both data and power, for 2 poles and 5 neighbors. We're talking like 20, 30 grand to beautify the backyard, probably more than that. And we were gonna upgrade that transformer, utility was, and then set a pad distribution box and hit this back corner. But the utility, after giving soft approval, then retracted that approval and said, no, we don't want to upgrade that half mile of lines through the woods. This is a relatively litigious, wealthy, and therefore litigious neighborhood. You got a lot of smart, affluent people that know how to push back when utility companies got all kinds of equipment in their backyard that does not benefit them. And so we went through actually deriving power from further down, and they were going to upgrade 2 houses and 2 carriage houses in order to pacify those neighbors to accomplish the objective of getting power to their site. Finally, third iteration, the utility company approved that massive, almost half-mile directional board to this transformer. So there's a dedicated high voltage underground utility up along the street to that transformer for this customer. And after approval was given, it was 4 to 6 months. Well, I'm saying 4 to 6 months, maybe more, because it's not energized yet. 4 to 6 months before power will be connected from the date of approval until real power. It's pretty crazy, and it's only going to get worse. We don't have enough linemen, and our infrastructure is relatively dated, and the power outage that you used to have that was 2 to 3 hours during a winter storm or something like that, maybe half a day, that could easily turn into a week as those resources, particularly human resources, get stretched even further. Time frames are insane right now. I've been waiting at my house for over 12 months for a service upgrade. Now it's a big one similar to this, just because I love power. Not nearly the demands that this place has, but man, it is hectic.
Steroids, right?
Maybe a touch less.
Don't we all though?
Okay,
Do you take them?
Yeah, well, I mean,
kind of a tight 3/4.
I don't know. Why wouldn't you?
Tell me when you have enough.
I'm good. The answer to that.
Okay.
Do you have to do that?
yeah, go ahead.
All right, and before I get stripping and terminating my own conductor, I go ahead and get clips ready and send it in. All right, here's the black hot. Whoops. All right, so I'm doing something a little bit different than the conductors I was just talking about, and that is I'm putting my neutral on top, and that's because it's so far left. My 4-aught neutral is going to have a much better chance of making that tight bend than my 350 Casey mill neutral. That's a pretty big conductor. So neutrals, line neutrals do not have to be on top in our jurisdiction. Know your local code. All right, we're permanently marking phases and all the wire at its terminations. See, larger than 6 gauge does not need to be anything other than black and then marked permanently at terminations. Yeah, I know you've heard me go off about how electrical tape is not permanent, but in a dry environment where the only thing it has to do is hold itself to the conductor, and it's not like it requires no mechanical strength or permanent insulating value, this is fine. And it's permissible by code. Hey guys, I really genuinely want your critique on this installation, our methods, our tools. I am hungry to be good at this and to present the best to our team and our apprentices who are watching these videos and to you guys. So if you've got a critique, lay it on the line, man. I'm probably about 30 to 34 years from retirement. I got so much to learn, so much, it's insane, and you could help me out. Split right there, that is the weak spot. Oh, wow, that's mismanufactured. Look how thin that is, paper thin. Man, that kind of stuff can happen. I've never seen one that's that bad. But that is where they'll break when they break. That's the weakest spot. Wow. Glad that happened in our hearing and presence. I'm gonna look across all these other. So what could have been the repercussions if that had not been detected or had broken later, let's say 2 months into? Well, a loose connection means a high resistance connection. High resistance means high heat. High heat means failure and the potential for fire. So that would have cooked right there until it just scorched. Now, no logs, this compound right here, that maximizes electrical conductivity. And so that would have helped. But this connection, if there had been substantial load, and I think there will be based upon the loads in this, but if there had been substantial load on that particular phase, it would have just sat there and burned up. Being contained in this environment, it might have gone so far as to scorch the wood inside, but I doubt it would have set this thing ablaze. The tenant would have rather reported non-performance of whatever was connected to that phase, and we would have gone panel to panel, panel by panel inside, testing with a voltmeter to look for voltage, and we would have found a voltage that was irregular. We would have probably found 124 volts typically from neutral to hot across all these disconnects, and then we would have found one that was reading, because of high resistance, it would have read a lower voltage, and maybe we would have found it's 96 or something, depending on the load at that time and how much that had burned up. And then we would have just investigated that phase, and it's marked with red inside, outside. It's marked as disconnect 2, inside, outside, and on the cover. So it would have made it easily traceable, and we would have found that that was burned up, and we would have moved the connection over, stripped the wire back, because this whole bit of wire would have just been scorched, insulation melted, all blackened. It would have looked like it had been through a fire. And so we've got a little bit extra, would have just straightened that up, re-stripped it, and probably would have been back in the game for minimal effect. It's generally what happens, but man, it could have been worse than that. See if we can get that rounded back up. Max lug size is 250. This is 4/0, so we only have marginal room for error. Get that thing to seat back in there. There it is. I'm going to make sure there's never insulation in that electrical connection. That's going to impede quality of connection. So we're going to do the tighten, wiggle, tighten, loosen, tighten method. And then we'll come back with the torque wrench and seat those babies down. Let's say a torque wrench on you when you're able to come back here. Then you got to use good judgment. And there are plenty of electricians that encounter success with just their own plain old good judgment. One thing you can do is check the neighboring terminal and match. Obviously that's just a feel. If you're not familiar with hand tools, you might not have a good sense for that. It's a very imprecise method. But if you're caught in a lurch, I'm not 110% against tightening terminals without torquing them down, but you are increasing your risk in business and in the trades and anywhere you go. Hopping in a vehicle to go to grandma's house, there is risk. I have more risk appetite than most people. I understand that, which is why I'm a business owner. So what's your risk appetite, right? And when it doesn't just affect you, it affects others. All right, now we didn't end up needing the ground because the disconnects are back here. You see, the utility doesn't require ground, it's the premises wiring. And so if the disconnects had been up there, we would have had grounds and neutrals common or bonded at those disconnects and then separated all the way back here, requiring a separate grounding conductor. And that's this one with the yellow stripe. But that wasn't the case. So I think I'm just gonna whack it off and be done with it. And that's what the utility is gonna do on the other end. So we're just gonna come back here and get rid of it. Come on, none of these are marked as a neutral. Typically there's one with a white stripe. I hadn't even looked at it, paid attention. There's one with a white stripe and there's one with a yellow stripe. White is neutral, yellow is ground, or green across manufacturers. But I don't see any distinction. Hello? B. Huh. It's A, B, C. So this was designed to be three-phase. I mean, it works. It's right, but interesting. Well, let's pick a phase and let's communicate with the power company. So it's marked A, B, C is what you get. And we're gonna take C, because there is no third phase, and we're gonna mark it with white tape. And we're gonna leave a note to the power company that C is neutral. And they're gonna label it as such, and we're gonna reassign that conductor as a neutral conductor. And that's how it's gonna be. All right, this is where the comments get contentious. Y'all ready for this? We've upsized our wire to 350 kc mil for voltage drop. The concern is not ampacity per se, but it's voltage drop. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna trim down some of these conductors in order to fit it in these lugs, but we're gonna still maximize the strand count to 250 kc mil. I could do pin adapters across all three on all three disconnects and reduce down with the crimp tool. I've got the tool, I don't have the pin adapters. That would easily add $250 in there to the project. It's not crazy, it's not insurmountable, it's a $40,000 job, but also potential delays if we don't plan ahead. I'm gonna be very okay with that. And I would even feel comfortable calling it to our inspector's attention as long as he sees that the strands that are left in this compact conductor, look at that, that's compact aluminum. The strands that are left are maximizing that lug because that lug is effectively rated at 200 amps. So go ahead, comment below, let's do this. So number 6 copper is required for an equipment grounding conductor for a 200 amp overcurrent device, and number 4 copper, based upon table 250.66, is required for bonding conductors. So we're going to use this number 6 copper to connect our 2 ground rods to our disconnect, to our panel, disconnect, panel, disconnect, and we're going to daisy chain all the way down. There is the possibility that if you had a really picky inspector, he's going to require he's going to require a separate set of 2 ground rods for every single service disconnect. Now, I've got a whole bunch of things on my brain right here. 1, overcurrent device must be integral to the disconnect, the main service disconnect. 2, the service disconnect must be located on the exterior of the building or immediately inside the structure, period. Like the inspectors don't want to weave all the way through. The firefighters aren't going to do that in case of a fire. You got to be able to shut off power on the exterior. 3, the service disconnect must be clearly indicating whether it's in the on or off position, and that's right on the cover, on, off. It's raised, it's not printed, or it's actually stamped into the cover, on and off. Also, readily accessible location. That means this cannot be in a place where it requires tools in order to access, or ladders. Like, you can't put it exorbitantly high. The upper edge of this handle, this red handle in the on position, up position, 6'7" max. And that's above grade, which we don't have quite a clear picture on what grade looks like other than 6 inches below the top of the foundation. So those are all codes and practices. Also, surge protection, which is not yet enforced. I did write up a change order, send it to them, and they did not approve it because it's not at the enforceable level yet. It's elective. Surge suppression is required to be integrated into every service. In addition to that, every service disconnect must be operable by one throw of the hand. However, there are some exceptions. Like in this case, we have multiple services to the structure, so we can have up to 6. That does not count generators disconnects and photovoltaic disconnects, since those are equipment disconnects and not service disconnects, even though they bring a separate source of power. So 1 to 6 grouped together, integral overcurrent, 6'7" max, readily accessible, clearly indicating an on or off position on the exterior of the structure, or a really good case for why it's on the interior of the structure. At this point, we're putting all exterior disconnects, period. End of story. 3 years ago, it was wild, wild west. You could have them inside all day long. Today, enforcement has kind of crept up, caught up, it's tightening up. This is what a nicely terminated panel looks like. Phase A, phase B, neutral. The neutral feeds through to neutral bar on this side, neutral bar on this side, and then the grounds are separated on the outside here. So we're ready to put these insulating covers on the main feeders, like that. And put this panel cover back on. That's a wrap. It's a wrap in here. We're gonna go ahead and take some provisions to energize temporary circuits and power. So 1, this space can be climatized, and 2, there can be construction power in the building and not just at the temp pole. This may look like a crazy amount of power, but it's truly just 3 distinct 200 amp disconnects. If you want more of this, boom, subscribe to Electric Pro Academy for real skills to make real money.